Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had such a great time this last weekend. We're in Southern California there in Marietta, where Colleen and I used to live. We're at West Coast Life Church. We had 2 services Sunday morning, had fun. Then we had the LA House of Prayer that afternoon, had such a great time. Gosh, people are so hungry. It just blesses me to see people so hungry for the coming of the Lord. And this weekend, if you're anywhere in upstate New York, we'll be at Endwell, New York. And we'll be there Saturday morning, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. And we'll be getting in end times. We'll have question and answers. We're going to have a great time. It's Triumphant Lights Church. If you can find it there in Endwell, we'll have an awesome time. 3 different services. So we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord. And specifically, the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war, because the rapture is signless, but the second coming has tons of signs. So the Lord wanted us to know. He said, you can tell what the hour of your visitation is. He said, you can tell what the weather's going to be, but you don't know your hour of your visitation. So he wanted them to know. And we've talked about how when Jesus walked into town, demons started crying out, "Have you come to torment us before the time?" And so demons knew Jesus had a schedule, but he was early. But I love that it was instant submission. But if demons can know the schedule, how much more the church? Because it's wonderful that Paul said we are not in darkness, that this day would overtake us as a thief. So all the information we look at about how close we are is to accelerate. It's not an escape theology. I hear people say, well, you want to go up in the rapture because you want to escape. No. Looking at all the signs of the coming of the Lord tells us we have a lot to do in a short period of time. So it's a finish line mentality. I've never seen somebody in a race look at the finish line and go, I don't know what that is. No, the finish line tells you to give it your all and to run as fast as you can. So we'll go over a lot of things that have happened this last week. Man, so much is going on in Israel. I didn't talk about it last week, but Israel got radiation pills. Now, when you have a brand new radiation pill, that's telling you they're thinking they're going to have a nuclear explosion. So that kind of freaks you out when you know that they're doing something like that. But there's so much going on that really kind of surprised me. You have a member of the Likud party in Israel that brought forth a proclamation to divide the Temple Mount. Now, the Palestinians went absolutely ballistic. So he's made a proclamation to divide the Temple Mount to where Israel would have the central portion of the Temple Mount and the northern portion, which would include the Dome of the Rock, and the Palestinians would have the southern portion. Well, of course, Jordan and the rest of the Palestinians went absolutely ballistic over that, because this is what World War III is going to be about. It's the Temple Mount. So when you start hearing verbiage to alter things with the Temple Mount, the Jordanians, which have control over it right now, just went absolutely crazy. So there'll be a continuation of that just because more of that's going to happen. So you have a lot happening with Iran. Man, so much is happening with Iran. You have the Ayatollah Khomeini saying, we're not trying to make nuclear weapons. And then the next sentence he says, we're calling for the annihilation of Israel. So you have literally indirect talks going on between Israel and America and Iran, kind of behind the scenes talk to try to keep from having a nuclear war. Because the Ayatollah Khomeini, when he said we're not doing that, Israel came out and said, and America came out and said, you've enriched to 90% of uranium. So Israel's even got a whole new, you could call it kind of an intel operation going on just for Iran. How a war would break out with Iran. I mean, specifically added to their defense system, an intel setup to go, okay, this is how a war will go. It's getting so extreme that America CENTCOM General, again, started a whole nother set of operations with Israel's Air Force, to the point we've got our B-1B bombers having inter-air refueling. I was looking at some of the video. It's so amazing. And this is what the general at CENTCOM said. He said, we're sending Iran a message that we can so reload these planes with fuel that attacking Iran from the air will be a piece of cake. I like it when they get real bold like that. So it has to be kind of in your face like that. But you've got all this preparation for this because Jesus is just about to come back. This is how crazy it's gotten. You have in American-supported college in the United States of America that are supported by tax money, taxpayers' dollars. You had in commencement speeches in New York and in California, 2 different commencement speakers, both called for the annihilation of Israel. Now, these are American speakers in American cities, in American country, calling for the annihilation of Israel. Both of them said that Israel is an apartheid state. So you got weird verbiage coming out about that, weird verbiage coming out from colleges in America, which is nuts. This one probably freaked me out more than any of them. You got China is putting a new base in Cuba. I mean, that's kind of like a deal breaker right there, and they're putting it in just to continue to watch the coverage of communications with America. So basically being close enough to monitor everything that's in America. You've got the World Health Organization. This one is another one that I say is this week because they're all so crazy. The WHO, the World Health Organization, which has basically been trying to control different nations through what they would call an outbreak of COVID or whatever. They're calling for a digital chip and a digital identification system to be all over the world. So isn't it weird that they try to put a mark on someone based on a disease, and that's how they're going to want to try to control the world. So crazy. One thing after another. You had earthquakes. I didn't even talk about the asteroids last week. You had 3 asteroids that came by on Sunday. You've got an asteroid that came by this last Sunday night, the size of the Titanic. So you've got all this stuff with Israel. You've got the Kurds fighting with Iran in northern Syria. You have Turkey doing what they continue to do. You have Israel getting ready to set up a whole new communications corridor that's going to cost tons of money to come in. You've got Germany buying basically Israel's David Slingshot defense system for $4 billion. So there's event after event after event that are all pointing to it looks like there's about to be a massive war. And I know we say that every week, but boy, there's things getting ready for a breakout, it looks like. So, because we know the Ezekiel 38 war is very soon. So, wow, what do? Help our local church, help our local pastor. We get involved. We do everything we can because the Lord's coming back. So these signs aren't to scare us, they're to get us excited. So we always go to the scripture. What do we look at? Number 1, Israel made a nation. Number 2, Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those 2 events will not pass away till all is fulfilled. Then you got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You've got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You had foxes show up on the Temple Mount. You had fish show up in the Dead Sea. You had the Dead Sea turn blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah was on the Day of Atonement this last year. You have the ritual baths around the Temple Mount fill up with water, first time in 2,000 years. So things are happening that are blatant. You have the archway for Baal worship in Palmyra. Now that's where the Tower of Babel was. You had that archway for Baal worship because the Talmud says that's the last thing you'll see before the coming of the Messiah. So sign after sign after sign after sign. Men will be lovers themselves. We have selfie 6. You got 172 different species of predatory birds started showing up in the land, because God calls on the fowl of the air to clean the land up after the Ezekiel 38 war. 7 years later, at the Battle of Armageddon, he calls on the fowl of the air to clean the land up again. So you got all these things. You got the Temple Mount Institute ready to start having sacrifices. I mean, that alone is remarkable. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. Israel produces 90% of the fruit for all of Europe. You have the Ethiopian Jews brought out in one day. I mean, all of these point to Jesus is just about to come. So what do? We accelerate. And, you have signs like this, but man, when you're coming into a town, the signs show you how close you are to the town, but once you get into town, you got signals. So we had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. That's such a huge deal. NASA calls it a tetrad, 4 in a row. When's the last time you had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? This is remarkable. 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So you have that remarkable. Then at the birth of Jesus, you had the Bethlehem star, Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus come together. Jupiter, king planet. Regulus, regal, king planet. Regulus did retrograde motion. Looks like it's going backwards, but crowned Jupiter. Then you had Venus. So all those came together at the birth of Jesus. The constellation was Virgo. This last year, a celestial event, newscasters, we have a celestial event. We have Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus coming together. Bethlehem star. First time in 2,000 years. What was the constellation? Leo. He's the lion of the tribe of Judah. So you have all of these things, plus many more things that sometimes I forget what was. There's so much of it, my brain just kind of goes, how can we get all this in? Because used to, there was just 2 or 3 things. Now you got so many things happening every single day. Why? The king's about to come back. Think about this. The earth is getting ready to have the entrance of Jesus of Nazareth, the one who died for us, raised from the dead, the one that we honor and love. We're about to see him face to face. So all these things that we look at are so many points to the second coming. You back away 7 years and you have the rapture of the church. So People say, why does the rapture have to happen? The church has so much authority that the Antichrist can't even be revealed until we're taken off the earth. That's what Paul said in 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. So it's a biblical thing for us to go up. We're just going to be transported, just like Enoch was raptured, Elijah was raptured, Jesus was raptured, and the church will be raptured. So wow, this is it, the coming of the Lord. Every single week you got event, you got nation, you got all these players coming together for the Ezekiel 38 war and blatant stuff about the nation of Israel and about literally Iran wanting to wipe Israel off the map, along with Americans and colleges wanting to wipe Israel off the map, along with all the signs in the heavens with asteroids. Don't even get into all that, and with all the weather being so crazy. But guess what? The King's coming. The King's coming back. Wow. Come back next Wednesday and we'll look and see what's happened. There'll be a lot happen with talks with Iran, with Israel, and the United States, trying to keep Israel from getting hit by a nuclear weapon. And I believe that things are unfolding right before our eyes because Jesus is just about to come back. Have a blessed, wonderful week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.